So tonight we're here at the Community Arts Center, and the purpose of the meeting, a town meeting essentially, and one that we really don't do that frequently, is to go over our redevelopment plans as we see it and as we've proceeded so far in terms of what we'd like to have on the areas in need of redevelopment that we've been working on now for close to 2 years on the Route 18 corridor. And we're pretty much at the point now where we have an idea, plan-wise, what would work there. We have spoken to developers, we've spoken to consultants, we've spoken to planners, we've spoken to experts in the field, and we've kind of narrowed down to the types of uses that would best work in our areas of redevelopment. And as we approach the point where we're kind of honing in on a plan, this would be the great opportunity and the best opportunity for anybody in town who has ideas about what they'd like to see in any of these redevelopment zones put in place now. This would be the time. Eventually, we want to get to a point where we have a complete, coherent plan that the whole town can agree upon, that has all the needs and all the desires and all the wishes that most people in town would like to see, whether they be public uses of some of the space, whether it would be design features to some of the spaces that we're talking about, parking and traffic type of concerns, all of shopping, dining, all of these type of concerns. This is the time to sort of get your feelings out there so that as we sit down with developers and start to negotiate a final plan, we will have the ability to at least negotiate from a starting point that includes everything that we want. You're more than welcome to write to my office. You're more than welcome to email to the office. But this is the time that the community needs to sink their teeth into what the best options would be for these locations, its best uses, and to give their opinions on how that's going to look in the end. Because at the end of the day, we all need to be proud of what we've accomplished. We don't own the property on Route 18. The township doesn't own it. These are owned by individual landowners and individual business owners. And so this is the opportunity to come up with a plan. That plan then has to be honed to make sure that it has everything that the township wants. But then we need to sit down with these developers and start to negotiate with whatever rules and tools we have through the laws of redevelopment to come up with a plan that we can agree upon. As you look at the corridor, as you look at Route 18, as you look at the developments in East Brunswick, it is a function of mass migration out of cities into suburbs that took place in the 50s and in the 60s and in the 70s. Cities at that time were considered to be overcrowded, they were dangerous, they were crime-ridden, and people flocked to suburbs. And if you look at our structure, whether you look at the homes in the community, they're built for subdivisions. That's what people were doing in the 50s and 60s and 70s. The commercial properties were all designed towards mass buildings of structures that had big box stores with lots of cars that would drive to the big malls. It was the age of the malls in the last 15 or so years, as people are starting to really rethink the need for and the desire of communities. Millennials, Generation Zs, which we'll talk about, that's the group that follows millennials, they're all flocking to the cities. So their idea of a home is one where you have live, work, and play space all in one place. But they're also moving to communities that are forward-thinking and are developing city-like or urban-like communities, even within suburban communities. In the year 2000, the largest subgroup of age groups of people living in East Brunswick were aged 35 to 45. By 2010, the largest subgroup of people were aged 45 to 55, which means that in a 10-year period of time, we aged 10 years. If the census for 2020 shows that the largest age group is now 55 to 65, we're in big trouble, because the people that are in 55 to 65 don't have kids in the school any longer. So their number one concern will not be the quality of your school system. That becomes, by definition, a township in decline. If you look at people aged 22 to 45 in East Brunswick in that same 10-year period of time, it has decreased 20%. That is not good.
We've hired some of the best professionals throughout the state to start looking at our properties, along with the redevelopment agency, who is made up of professionals, people in the development industry, in the real estate industry, people that have a good sense of what happens in various different communities throughout the state, throughout the real estate market. And with that, what we're looking at here is an overview of this is the Loman's Plaza property. You got, what's that, Ruth Street there, and from north there, we got the circle on Edgeboro Road, and then we have the burger piece, which is basically where the Wiz was and Gap. So what we did is we're looking at this as a collective piece of property that can create a pathway through the area, and from there we create that pathway. It gives an alternate sense of transportation down Route 18. It would add an ability to put a parking garage in, which would be easily accessible from Route 18, and we would look to get back towards Route 18 with the buses and all of that. So we would have office and parking in this area, and then what ends up happening is the tennis club, we figure, is an advantageous use. Right now, we don't see a need to potentially do anything there. It's great recreation use. So we end up with mixed-use areas all surrounding, with a boulevard coming in from 18, gives you perspective and view. And this boulevard, as I showed in the previous slide, but what happens is we create a traffic pattern. This traffic pattern now, as we all go through there, people dump off of 18, jump through the Loman's Plaza, and continue down and behind Lake Estates here and travel all the way out to Tisus Lane. So what we plan to do is encourage that traffic to continue down there. And what we end up having is we have the parking garage here with a potential for some office space adjacent to it. And what we have is retail, first floor retail on all of these buildings here, with structured parking in the rear. When we say structured parking, that's parking deck. Parking deck becomes shared between the retail and the residential. And then what we end up with is maybe some type of recreation space here, community recreation space, a hotel here with shared parking, smaller residential over here, and then we have some pad sites here out along the highway, which could be banks, restaurants, anything else.
Now, on behalf of the Redevelopment Agency, the Redevelopment Advisory Committee, the township, our council, Councilman Wendell and myself, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight.